Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. Today, the live studios, as they have been for many days, and they will continue to be for many months more, are here at 3402 Radha Lane in the Sannyasi Quarters Library, just across the street from Sri Sri Radha Nilamadava's gorgeous temple. And we're here reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam every day. And this is spiritual education. And we're learning just by hearing. This isn't about taking a test, and getting a certificate and some letters after your name, right? Or a bunch of information that we can beat people over the head with. This is about learning how to think and feel and will in a way that is pleasing to Krishna. By becoming attached to Krishna, by hearing the Bhagavatam every day like this in the association of sincere devotees, what happens is our heart changes. It melts in affection for Krishna, eventually. And then we find out who we are. We're actually devotees. We're actually servants of Krishna. And that makes us happy, and it makes everyone around us happy. So, welcome home. Hare Krishna. Welcome to all of you out in cyberspace. Welcome to all the great souls here in Houston that have gathered together to associate with Krishna, hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam, and learn who we are. Before we hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Hare Krishna. Hari Bol, Dr. G. It's got your name on it. You just have to accept graciously. Hare Krishna. So before we launch into our latest chapter of spiritual education, we're going to hear glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, what it is and what it does. Compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami, one of our great spiritual leaders in our line, the senior disciple of Lord Chaitanya, and in the spiritual world, an intimate associate of Radha and Krishna. It goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdipi Yusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishdadaka Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin atini chochatakara hanamuncha gadachin mam premna rit katayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we've reached the 14th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, 4th canto. We're starting with text number 8. And now we're in the story leading up to the appearance of Prithu Maharaj, the incarnation of Krishna, who first organized different aspects of human society on the earth. This is the history of the universe we're reading. So his father was Hare Krishna, Jai Carter, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Prithu Maharaj appeared when the sages realized that the king that they put in place when Maharaj Anga left to go to the forest was actually doing more harm than good. That's where we're starting from. Text 8. When the great sages consulted one another, they saw that the people were in a dangerous position from both directions. When a fire blazes on both ends of a log, the ants in the middle are in a very dangerous situation. Similarly, at that time the people in general were in a dangerous position due to an irresponsible king on one side and thieves and rogues on the other. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's happening. It's a cycle. Text 9. Thinking to save the state from irregularity, the sages began to consider that it was due to a political crisis that they made Vena king, although he was not qualified. But alas, now the people were being disturbed by the king himself. Under such circumstances, how could the people be happy? Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 18.5, it is stated that even in the renounced order, one should not give up sacrifice, charity, and penance. The brahmacharis must perform sacrifices. The grihastas, take notes now, brahmacharis. We got new brahmacharis here. The brahmacharis must perform sacrifices. The grihastas must give in charity. And those in the renounced order of life, the vanaprasthas and sannyasis, must practice penance and austerities. These are the procedures by which everyone can be elevated to the spiritual platform. When the sages and saintly persons saw that King Vena had stopped all these functions, they became concerned about the people's progress. Saintly people preach God consciousness or Krishna consciousness because they are anxious to save the general populace from the dangers of animalistic life. There must be a good government to see that the citizens are actually executing their religious rituals, and thieves and rogues must be curbed. When this is done, the people can advance peacefully in spiritual consciousness and make their lives successful. Text 10. The sages began to think within themselves, because he was born from the womb of Sunita, King Vena is by nature very mischievous. Supporting this mischievous king is exactly like maintaining a snake with milk. Now he has become a source of all difficulties. Purport. Saintly persons are generally aloof from social activities and the materialistic way of life. King Vena was supported by the saintly persons just to protect the citizens from the hands of rogues and thieves. But after his ascendance to the throne, he became a source of trouble to the sages. Saintly people are especially interested in performing sacrifices and austerities for the advancement of spiritual life. But Vena, instead of being obliged because of the saints' mercy, turned out to be their enemy because he prohibited them from executing their ordinary duties. A serpent who is maintained with milk and bananas simply stores poison in his teeth and awaits the day to bite his master. Did I tell you the story? Yeah. There was this guy who got into his mind that he liked pets, and he decided that he wanted to have snakes as pets. It's not very intelligent, but he did this, and he had a cobra, a pet cobra. And he used to go around with it wrapped around his neck. And one day he was driving down the road, and the cobra went like this, and bit his mouth shut with poison. And somehow or other he got the 911. You know how the phones are nowadays? He managed to get the right thing. And the people came, and there he was in the car with this snake. I mean, this is a real story. I'm not joking. This is a real story. This is how stupid people can get. You think how far they can go? Well, this is about as far as they can go. And finally they killed the snake, they got the snake off his mouth, took him to the hospital, and he didn't die. But that's what happens. A serpent who is maintained with milk and bananas simply stores poison in his teeth and awaits the day to bite his master. Text 11. It's not just stories in these books. We appointed this Vena king of the state in order to give protection to the citizens. But now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him. Purport. The saintly sages elected King Vena to become king, but he proved to be mischievous. Therefore the sages were very much afraid of incurring sinful reaction. The law of karma prohibits a person even to associate with a mischievous individual. By electing Vena to the throne, the saintly sages certainly associated with him. Ultimately, King Vena became so mischievous that the saintly sages actually became afraid of becoming contaminated by his activities. Thus, before taking any action against him, the sages tried to pacify and correct him so that he might turn from his mischief. Text 12. The saintly sages continued thinking. Of course, we are completely aware of his mischievous nature, yet nevertheless, we enthroned Vena. If we cannot persuade King Vena to accept our advice, he will be condemned by the public, and we will join them. Thus, by our prowess, we shall burn him to ashes. Purport. Saintly persons are not interested in political matters, yet they are always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. Consequently, they sometimes have to come down to the political field and take steps to correct the misguided government or royalty. However, in Kali Yuga, saintly persons are not as powerful as they previously were. They used to be able to burn any sinful man to ashes by virtue of their spiritual prowess. Now saintly persons have no such power due to the influence of Kali Yuga. Indeed, the Brahmanas do not even have the power to perform sacrifices in which animals are put into a fire to attain a new life. Under these circumstances, instead of actively taking part in politics, saintly persons should engage in chanting the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya, by simply chanting this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the general populace can derive all benefits without political implications. And then they'll come and hear Srimad-Bhagavatam and get the perfection. Text 13. The great sages, having thus decided, approached King Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words, and then spoke as follows. Text 14. The great sages said, "Dear King, we have come to give you good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase." Purport. According to Vedic civilization, in a monarchy, the king is advised by saintly persons and sages. By taking their advice, he can become the greatest executive power, and everyone in his kingdom will be happy, peaceful, and prosperous. The great kings were very responsible in taking the instructions given by great saintly personalities. The kings used to accept the instructions given by great sages like Parashara, Vyasadeva, Narada, Devala, and Asita. In other words, they would first accept the authority of saintly persons and then execute their monarchical powers. Unfortunately, in the present age of Kali, the head of government does not follow the instructions given by saintly persons. Therefore, neither the citizens nor the men of government are very happy. Their duration of life is shortened, and almost everyone is wretched and bereft of bodily strength and spiritual power. If citizens want to be happy and prosperous in this democratic age, they should not elect rascals and fools who have no respect for saintly persons. What to speak of anyone else? Text 15. Those who live according to religious principles and who follow them by words, mind, body, and intelligence are elevated to the heavenly kingdom, which is devoid of all miseries. Being thus rid of the material influence, they achieve unlimited happiness in life. Purport. The saintly sages herein instruct the king, or head of government. The saintly sages herein instruct that the king, or head of government, should set an example by living a religious life. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, religion means worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should not simply make a show of religious life, but should perform devotional service perfectly with words, mind, body, and good intelligence. By doing so, not only will the king or government head rid himself of the contamination of the material modes of nature, but the general public will also, and they will all become gradually elevated to the kingdom of God and go back home, back to Godhead. The instructions given herein serve as a summary of how the head of government should execute his ruling power and thus attain happiness not only in this life, but also in the life after death. Text 16. The sages continued, "O great hero, for this reason you should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of the general populace. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulent and royal position." Purport. Formerly, in practically all parts of the world, there were monarchies, but gradually as monarchy declined from the ideal life of religion, to the godless life of sense gratification, monarchies all over the world were abolished. However, simply abolishing monarchy and replacing it with democracy is not sufficient unless the government men are religious and follow in the footsteps of great religious personalities. Text 17. The saintly persons continued, when the king protects the citizens from the disturbances of mischievous ministers, as well as from thieves and rogues, he can, by virtue of such pious activities, accept taxes given by his subjects. Thus a pious king can certainly enjoy himself in this world as well as in the life after death. Purport. The duty of a pious king is described very nicely in this verse. His first and foremost duty is to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rogues, as well as from ministers who are no better than thieves and rogues. Formerly, ministers were appointed by the king and were not elected. Consequently, if the king was not very pious or strict, the ministers would become thieves and rogues and exploit the innocent citizens. It is the king's duty to see that there is no increase of thieves and rogues, either in the government secretariat, or in the departments of public affairs, If a king cannot give protection to citizens from thieves and rogues, both in the government service and in public affairs, he has no right to exact taxes from them. In other words, the king or the government that taxes can levy taxes from the citizens only if the king or government is able to give protection to the citizens from thieves and rogues. In the 12th Canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, 12.140, there is a description of these thieves and rogues in government service. As stated, Prajaste Bhakshayishanti Mlecha Ranjaya Rupina. These proud mlechas, persons who are less than Shudras, representing themselves as kings, will tyrannize their subjects, and their subjects, on the other hand, will cultivate the most vicious practices. This practicing evil habits and behaving foolishly, thus practicing evil habits and behaving foolishly, the subjects will be like their rulers. You know how many guns have been sold in the United States? Yeah. How many guns have been sold in the United States? Do you know?
More than the population.
Yes.
Yeah.
350 million.
Yeah.
350 million guns have been sold in the United States. And now, as you see, in the last 10, 15 years, they're starting to use them more and more. Thus practicing evil habits and behaving foolishly, the subjects will be like their rulers. The idea is that in the democratic days of Kali Yuga, the general population will fall down to the standard of Shudras. As stated, Kalo, Shudra, Sambhava. Practically the whole population of the world will be Shudra. A Shudra is a fourth-class man who is only fit to work for the three higher social castes. Being fourth-class men, Shudras are not very intelligent. Since the population has fallen in these democratic days, they can only elect a person in their category. But a government cannot run very well when it is run by Shudras. The second class of men, known as Kshatriyas, are especially meant for governing a country under the direction of saintly persons, Brahmanas, who are supposed to be very intelligent. In other ages, in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga, the general populace was not so degraded, and the headed government was never elected. The king was the supreme executive personality, and if he caught any ministers stealing like thieves and rogues, he would at once have them killed or dismissed from service. As it was the duty of the king to kill thieves and rogues, it was similarly his duty to immediately kill dishonest ministers in government service. By such strict vigilance, the king could run the government very well, and the citizens would be happy to have such a king. The conclusion is that unless the king is perfectly able to give protection to the citizens from rogues and thieves, he has no right to levy taxes from the citizens for his own sense gratification. However, if he gives all protection to the citizens and levies taxes on them, he can live very happily and peacefully in this life, and at the end of this life be elevated to the heavenly kingdom, or even to the Vaikunthas, where he will be happy in all respects. Text 18. The king is supposed to be pious, in whose state and cities the general populace strictly observes the system of 8 orders of Varna and Ashram, and where all citizens engage in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupations. Purport. The state's duty and the citizen's duty are very nicely explained in this verse. The activities of the government head or king, as well as the activities of the citizens, should be so directed that ultimately everyone engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king or government head is supposed to be the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and is therefore supposed to see that things go on nicely and that the citizens are situated in the scientific social order comprised of 4 Varnas and 4 Ashrams. In the Vishnu Purana, it is stated that unless people are educated or situated in the scientific social order comprised of 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and 4 Ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, society can never be considered real human society, nor can it make any advancement toward the ultimate goal of human life. It is the duty of the government to see that things go on in terms of Varna and Ashram. As stated herein, Bhagavan Yagya Purusha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, is the Yagya Purusha. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagya Tapasam, Krishna is the ultimate purpose of all sacrifice. He is also the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Therefore he is known as Yagya Purusha. The word Yagya Purusha indicates Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna, or any personality of Godhead in the category of Vishnu Tattva. In perfect human society, people are situated in the orders of Varna and Ashrama, and are engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu by their respective activities. Every citizen engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu by the respective, every citizen engaged in an occupation. Oh, wait, I skipped one. In perfect human society, people are situated in the orders of Varna and Ashram, and are engaged in worshipping Lord Vishnu by their respective activities. Every citizen engaged in an occupation renders service by the resultant actions of his activities. That is the perfection of life. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 1846, Yatak pravritir bhutanam yena sarvamidang tatam sakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindatimanavaha. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Thus the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Shudras, and Vaishyas must execute their prescribed duties as these duties are stated in the Shastras. In this way everyone can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The king or government head has to see that the citizens are thus engaged. In other words, the state or the government must not deviate from its duty by declaring that the state is a secular one, which has no interest in whether or not the people advance in Varnashram Dharma. Today, people engaged in government service and people who rule over the citizens have no respect for the Varnashram Dharma. They complacently feel that the state is secular. In such a government, no one can be happy. The people must follow the Varnashram Dharma, and the king must see that they're following it nicely. Text 19. O noble one, if the king sees that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and the Supersoul within everyone is worshipped, the Lord will be satisfied. Purport. It is a fact that the government's duty is to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is satisfied by the activities of the people, as well as by the activities of the government. There is no possibility of happiness if the government or citizenry have no idea of Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, or if they have no knowledge of Bhuta Bhavana, who is Vishwatma, or the Supersoul, the soul of everyone's soul. The conclusion is that without engaging in devotional service, neither the citizens nor the government can be happy in any way. At the present moment, neither the king nor the governing body is interested in seeing that the people are engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Rather, they are more interested in advancing the machinery of sense gratification. Consequently, they are becoming more and more implicated in the complex machinery of the stringent laws of nature. People should be freed from the entanglement of the three modes of material nature, and the only process by which this is possible is surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is advised in Bhagavad Gita. Unfortunately, neither the government nor the people in general have any idea of this. They are simply interested in sense gratification and in being happy in this life. The word Nija Shasane, in his own governmental duty, indicates that both the government and the citizens are responsible for the execution of Varnashram Dharma. Once the populace is situated in the Varnashram Dharma, there is every possibility of real life and prosperity, both in this world and in the next. Text 20. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipped by the great demigods, controllers of universal affairs. When he is satisfied, nothing is impossible to achieve. For this reason, all the demigods, presiding deities of different planets, as well as the inhabitants of their planets, take great pleasure in offering all kinds of paraphernalia for his worship. Purport. All Vedic civilization is summarized in this verse. All living entities, either on this planet or on other planets, have to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their respective duties. When he is satisfied, all necessities of life are automatically supplied. In the Vedas, it is also stated, Eko Bahunam Yo Vididati Kaman. From the Vedas, we understand that he is supplying everyone's necessities. And we can actually see that the lower animals, the birds and the bees, have no business or profession, yet they are not dying for want of food. They are all living in nature's way, and they all have the necessities of life provided, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Human society, however, has artificially created a type of civilization which makes one forgetful of his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Modern society even enables one to forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead's grace and mercy. Consequently, modern civilized man is always unhappy and in need of things. People do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to approach Lord Vishnu and satisfy Him. They have taken this materialistic way of life as everything and have become captivated by materialistic activities. Indeed, their leaders are always encouraging them to follow this path, and the general populace, being ignorant of the laws of God, are following their blind leaders down the path of unhappiness. In order to rectify this world situation, all people should be trained in Krishna consciousness and act all people should be trained in Krishna consciousness and act in accordance with the Varnashram system. The state should also see that the people are engaged in satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the primary duty of the state. The Krishna consciousness movement was started to convince the general populace to adopt the best process by which to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus solve all problems. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text 21. Hare Krishna Nitya. Hare Bo. Dear King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, along with the predominating deities, is the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices in all planets. The Supreme Lord is the sum total of the three Vedas, the owner of everything, and the ultimate goal of all austerity. Therefore, your countrymen should engage in performing various sacrifices for your elevation. Indeed, you should always direct them towards the offering of sacrifices. Text 22. When all the Brahman is engaged in performing sacrifices in your kingdom, all the demigods who are plenary expansions of the Lord will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired result. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods. Text 23. King Vena replied, you are not at all experienced. Oh, this is the king now. You know, when you give good advice to a rascal, he just gets angry. So if we sometimes get good advice from someone and we get angry, then we should realize we're still rascals. King Vena replied, you are not at all experienced. It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintains you and are searching after some paramour to worship. Purport. King Vena was so foolish that he accused the saintly sages of being inexperienced like small children. In other words, he was accusing them of not having perfect knowledge. In this way, he could reject their advice and make accusations against them, comparing them to a woman who does not care for her husband, who maintains her, but goes to satisfy a paramour who does not maintain her. The purpose of this simile is apparent. It is the duty of the Kshatriyas to engage the Brahmanas in different types of religious activities, and the king is supposed to be the maintainer of the Brahmanas. If the Brahmanas do not worship the king, but instead go to the demigods, they are as polluted as unchaste women. Text 24. Those who, out of ignorance, do not worship the king, but who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, experience happiness neither in this world nor in the world after death. Text 25. You are so much devoted to the demigods, but who are they? Indeed, your affection for these demigods is exactly like the affection of an unchaste woman who neglects her married life and gives all attention to her paramour. 26 and 27. Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lord Indra, Vayu, the master of air, Yama, the superintendent of death, the sun god, the director of rainfall, Kuvera, the treasurer, the moon god, the predominating deity of the earth, Agni, the fire god, Varuna, the lord of waters, and all others who were great and competent to bestow benedictions or to curse, all abide in the body of the king. That means himself. For this reason, the king is known as the reservoir of all demigods, who are simply parts and parcels of the king's body. In other words, he's claiming himself to be God. Purport. There are many demons who think of themselves as the supreme and present themselves as the directors of the sun, moon, and other planets. This is all due to false pride. Similarly, King Vena developed a demonic mentality and presented himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such demons are numerous in this age of Kali, and all of them are condemned by great sages and saintly persons. Text 28. King Vena continued, "For this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities, you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. If you are intelligent, you should know that there is no personality superior to me." Where have I heard that before? To me, who can accept the first oblations of all sacrifices? Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, there's a list of what is knowledge given by Krishna himself. And the first item is Adambanta, humility. And at the end of the purport, where Prabhupada describes each item and what it means, he says, knowledge begins with humility. Without humility, no one can be in knowledge. This guy's puffed up. As stated by Krishna himself throughout Bhagavad Gita, there is no truth superior to him. King Vena was imitating the Supreme Personality of Godhead and was also speaking out of false pride, presenting himself as the Supreme Lord. These are all characteristics of a demonic person. Text 29. The great sage Maitreya continued, "Thus the king, who became unintelligent due to his sinful life and deviation from the right path, became actually bereft of all good fortune. He could not accept the requests of the great sages, which the sages put before him with great respect, and therefore he was condemned." Purport. The demons certainly cannot have any faith in the words of authorities. In fact, they are always disrespectful to authorities. They manufacture their own religious principles and disobey great personalities like Vyasa, Narada, and even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. As soon as one disobeys authority, he immediately becomes very sinful and loses his good fortune. The king was so puffed up and impudent that he dared disrespect the great saintly personalities, and this brought him ruination. Text 30. My dear Vidura, all good fortune unto you. The foolish king, who thought himself very learned, thus insulted the great sages, and the sages, being broken-hearted by the king's words, became very angry at him. Text 31. All the great saintly sages immediately cried, "Kill him, kill him. He is the most dreadful, sinful person. If he lives, he will certainly turn the whole world into ashes in no time." Purport. Saintly persons are generally very kind to all kinds of living entities, but they are not unhappy when a serpent or a scorpion is killed. It is not good for saintly persons to kill, but they are encouraged to kill demons who are exactly like serpents and scorpions. Therefore all the saintly sages decided to kill King Vena, who was so dreadful and dangerous to all human society. We can appreciate the extent to which the saintly sages actually controlled the king. If the king or government becomes demonic, it is the duty of a saintly person to upset the government and replace it with deserving persons who follow the orders and instructions of saintly persons. Text 32. The saintly sages continued, "This impious, impudent man does not deserve to sit on the throne at all. He is so shameless that he even dared insult the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu." Purport. One should not at any time tolerate blasphemy and insults against Lord Vishnu or his devotees. A devotee is generally very humble and meek, and he is reluctant to pick a quarrel with anyone, nor does he envy anyone. However, a pure devotee immediately becomes fiery with anger when he sees that Lord Vishnu or his devotee is insulted. This is the duty of a devotee. Although a devotee maintains an attitude of meekness and gentleness, it is a great fault on his part if he remains silent when the Lord or his devotee is blasphemed. Text 33. But for King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kinds of fortune and opulence. Purport. When human society individually or collectively becomes godless and blasphemes the authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is certainly destined for ruination. Such a civilization invites all kinds of bad fortune due to not appreciating the mercy of the Lord. Text 34. The great sages, thus manifesting their covert anger, immediately decided to kill the king. King Vena was already as good as dead due to his blasphemy against the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, without using any weapons, the sages killed King Vena simply by high-sounding words. By high-sounding words. Text 35. After all the sages returned to their respective hermitages, the mother of King Vena, Sunita, became very much aggrieved because of her son's death. She decided to preserve the dead body of her son by the application of certain ingredients and by chanting mantras, mantra yogina. In other words, she embalmed the body. Text 36. Once upon a time, the same saintly persons, after taking their bath in the river Saraswati, began to perform their daily duties by offering oblations under the sacrificial fires. After this, sitting on the bank of the river, they began to talk about the transcendental person and his pastimes. 37. In those days, there were various disturbances in the country that were creating a panic in society. Therefore, all the sages began to talk amongst themselves. Since the king is dead, and there is no protectorate in the world, misfortune may befall the people in general on account of rogues and thieves. Purport. Whenever there is a disturbance in the state or a panic situation, the property and lives of the citizens become unsafe. This is caused by the uprising of various thieves and rogues. At such a time, it is to be understood that the ruler or the government is dead. All of these misfortunes happened due to the death of King Vena. Thus, the saintly persons became very anxious for the safety of the people in general. The conclusion is that even though saintly persons have no business in political affairs, they are always compassionate upon the people in general. Thus, even though they are always aloof from society, out of mercy and compassion, they consider how the citizens can peacefully execute their rituals and follow the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharma. That was the concern of these sages. In this age of Kali, everything is disturbed. Therefore, saintly persons should take to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra as recommended in the Shastras. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatir anyata. Both for spiritual and material prosperity, everyone should devotedly chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So we'll stop there. Tomorrow we'll find out what happens. Okay. I'm turning the mic over to Bhakta Marcus.
Thank you. So, in the case in which a monarch is in fact a thief and a scoundrel, whose responsibility is it to usurp him or throw him down? Because I remember earlier in the readings it said the citizenry were supposed to pretty much adhere to the whim of the ruler even if he commits sinful activities.
No, it means that the citizens, the laws of nature govern this. It's not that the laws of nature govern that people follow the ruler. You know, how did all the German people follow Hitler? It was a law of nature. He became so powerful by karmic involvement, and the people also by karmic involvement, they follow the leader. Just like now, there's a vast majority, not a vast majority, but a large number of people that are following our president of the United States, despite all the things that he says and does. It's the nature. It's a law of nature. In the Varnashram system, the persons who are actually saintly, and there's hardly any saintly person nowadays, they had the power to correct the king. And normally the king would be surrounded by these saintly persons, and he would take their advice how to protect the citizens and how to rule in a way that was consistent with the scriptures, with the Vedic scriptures. So the persons who have the ability to bring the monarch down in those days were the Brahmanas, and only the Brahmanas. Because Brahma Tejas means the power of the Brahmana is more powerful than Kshatriya Tejas. Therefore, they could deal with him just by the sound of their voice. I mean, now, I think I mentioned this the other day, there's research going on in different countries of the world, not just America, but other different countries. They're experimenting with weapons that use sound, ultrasonic sound, that for a long distance they can destroy a object or an enemy or whatever. So the science of that sound in the Vedic system, when the bodies and the minds of the Brahmanas were very, very powerful. This is at the beginning of the universe. The food, the air, everything that is given by God to make us strong and healthy and even powerful depending on our position in society, are no longer, they're polluted, you know. I heard Gopi Puranadana Prabhu the other day give a really nice lecture, and he was talking about how, you know, we all share the air. You know, like when you've been in an airplane, you've been in an airplane, long haul flights, and the air is all circulated. So everybody's breathing out, you know, and then they're breathing in, and the people who are breathing in are breathing what the other people are breathing out. And it's gotten so bad now, the air is so polluted, and so many people are breathing out such nasty things that technically hardly anybody can say that they're actually purely vegetarian. because they're all breathing in all this stuff that's being cooked and breathed out by all the living beings. But in those days, it wasn't like that. In those days, things were pure. And this anomaly was clear. But nowadays, everything is so polluted and so confused and so disturbed that the people in general can't even see when it's confused. It's like if you have a room that is kept very neat and in order and clean, and then something comes in that doesn't belong there, or some place is not clean. You can see it immediately, and then you know it. But if you have a room that's cluttered with things and not been cleaned for months, one more thing comes in, you can't even tell. It's like that. Human society has become like that. So then let's just apply the principle. Then what do we do about it? I mean, this may sound impractical, but it's not. Exactly what we're doing right here and right now in this room is what we do about it. And we increase it. We use our brain. We use our, combine together and spread this movement. And we may say, oh, but there's only a few of us and there's billions of people. No, it's spreading. When I grew up in Oroville, California in the 50s, I'd never even heard of Krishna. And not only that, no one had heard of Krishna. I never heard anybody talk about Krishna or even mention Krishna. And even after I went to university, UCLA, and that's my alma mater.
I remembered once I came to the room and you looked at my shirt, I was like, oh yeah, he went there.
Yeah, on my alma mater. So, where was I?
Krishna.
Nobody heard of Krishna in Oroville.
Yeah, so now, I mean, literally a lot of people have heard of Krishna. But not only have they heard of Krishna, they've heard of karma, they've heard of yoga, they heard of meditation. The cultures are starting to mix together to the point where they have, the different kings, the different leaders of the society have to honor different religious rituals of the different religions that, are coming together. Things are changing, but it will take a very long time. So Prabhupada told us, no one should become discouraged because they think it's not spreading fast enough. It's spreading exactly as fast as it's supposed to. And it will take, count them, 5,000 years for this movement to become at the peak of its influence. 5,000 years is a long time. And all the persons you go out and you chant in the public and you give out the books, there's 500 million, that's 500 million books we've distributed since we started in the early 70s. And so many people out there have gotten the books and they're reading them, and even they're using the story, like we say, what happened if there was a blockbuster movie about this? Well, it's happening already. These special effects movies and everything, they take ideas from the books. What to speak of the trends towards vegetarianism. And I mean, there was one headline just the other day, if the earth wants to survive, everyone has to stop eating meat right now. It's right there in black and white. And it was in a major news site. So more people are thinking about it, and we just keep doing this, even though it seems a very small thing. It will gradually spread. And one generation, some people come very favorable. That means they've done something in their previous life. Yes, Sarva. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to preachy. I got a little preachy there. I get off the soapbox now. Not a preach now. I didn't want to get political, but go ahead.
So in general, devotees are supposed to be Brahminical and not get too wrapped up in politics. but I did read that some devotees ran for office, but Prabhupada didn't want to. I think Amarendra wrote that he wanted money for running, and Prabhupada didn't want the money to go away from the temple activities.
But that wasn't the full story.
Yeah.
That's part of the story. The person who was running was Balavanta. He was running for mayor, and they created a "In God We Trust" party, right? And Amarendra was one of the persons who was helping to organize, because he had a legal brain. So anyway, when Prabhupada saw that the devotees were becoming negligent in their spiritual duties, that's why he pulled the plug. Anyway, he didn't get so many votes, but anyway, he got out there. It was something. Prabhupada said in the future it could be that the devotees will come, and not Tulsi Gabbard may run for the President of the United States now. I mean, I think she is running. Yeah, she took her vow on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Yeah. So all these things, you put it all together and you see that it's going in a direction, it's going in a drift. I just attended Rath Yatra Festival in Los Angeles, which is one of the largest in the world. And I was on an airplane, and I was coming back, I think, to Dallas from Los Angeles. And there was this one gentleman came, and I was sitting on the aisle in one of the seats. And he came by, dressed very respectable person, in suit, and he looked like a businessman or something. He stopped and he paused right where I was. He put his hand on my shoulder like this. And he looked at me and said, "Well done." And all the persons around me, they all went like that. I've been like this for 46 years. And 46 years ago, that never would have happened. No way. But it's happening more and more. When we go onto the planes now, the attendants, they say, "Oh, Hare Krishna," they do little special things for you when you're in the plane. It's happening. It's increasing, and nothing can stop it. Lord Chaitanya said it will spread to every town and village, and it's spreading. Nothing can stop it. Only our refusing to do what we're doing right now. That's the only thing that can stop it. Even that can't stop it, because if we don't do it, somebody will. That's what Krishna said to Arjuna, right? Just fight. It's already decided. 11th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. And Lord Chaitanya said, it's going to spread to every town and village, and it's happening. And when he says something, it happens. So Prabhupada used to say, you have your plan, I have my plan, God has his plan, and it's that plan that is enacted, whatever we think. So Vena was a special case because, in those days, so close to the beginning of the universe, it was more clear, and Vena was a bigger anomaly. There's all kinds of things to say from those purports. I don't know if anybody else has something else to say. Because I got to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and do my thing. So I'm going to go to bed early and draw the curtain on this little transcendental experience we're going through. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your interest in hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Thank you so much. And thank you, all of you out in cyberspace, for coming along on this ride to read the whole Srimad-Bhagavatam all the way through, carefully, word for word, not missing a word, and then discussing. Prabhupada said, right at the end, he said, just go on discussing Srimad-Bhagavatam among yourselves, and everything will remain clear. And as soon as we stop doing this, then everything becomes unclear, because that's the nature of this material world. Krishna is all pervasive, And Maya is also all-pervasive. So as soon as you forget Krishna, Maya's right there. You don't have to wait for an instant. So please take this up, become absorbed in Krishna consciousness, learn the art of thinking and feeling and willing Krishna consciousness, and everything that you've ever dreamed and everything you haven't dreamed, desires you've had that you no longer want to have, like Dhruva Maharaj, they'll become fulfilled by Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki